into the unknown with the new KTM 890 Adventure R.
Hello Motorrunner World fans, and welcome to this latest episode of Talking MotoGP with myself, Rob Portman, just giving you my thoughts and findings from the recent MotoGP Sepang test, the first official test of the new year. 3 days for all the riders to take part in there. I'm not going to really touch too much into the shakedown test with the test riders before that. It was 3 days for all the riders, all the teams to be out on track, and there really is a lot to go into. So I'm going to go into each individual rider from the combined overall times from the 3 days, just touch upon them, the manufacturers and everything. As I said, a lot to talk about. Ducati dominance, just starting the new year where they ended off last year. The Constructors Champions, the World Champions, just proving that they have the best all-round package once again. 7 inside the top 10 were Ducati riders. So pat on the back again to Ducati. They've produced this machine that doesn't just work for one rider and suited to this kind of style. They've made this generic machine that just works for the different variety of riding styles, different personalities, and it just looks the easiest package to go fast on. It really does. And I think the sprint races this year is just going to be a Ducati fest. I think it's going to be a Ducati fest in general. But certainly with what we saw here at the Sepang test, how quickly most of those Ducati riders just got up and going was a scary thought for the rest of the manufacturers. Aprilia looking consistent and just building upon their success even more. Really impressed with Aprilia. Don't have the finances and the resources of some others, and there they are doing a fantastic job with the 4 bikes that they have out on track now. 2 of them inside the top 10 in the form of Aleix Espargaro and Maverick Vinales, the testing king. Yamaha's problems, a disaster. Fabio Quartararo labeling it after the Sepang test. So not the smiley, happy Fabio Quartararo and certainly Frankie Morbidelli that we were hoping to see and expecting to see after the Sepang test. Same can be said for the KTM riders. Pol Espargaro on the gas KTM. The fastest are in that camp. Brad Binder just behind him. Jack Miller, using the words, hitting a brick wall in terms of his setup and that. So just a lot of things to dive into from the 3 days of testing. Top of the timesheets, very, very impressed. And once again, every time I speak about this young man, I put my hands up and say I got it all wrong, because I never really rated him as a rider that would come into MotoGP and have the success that he has had so far. Luca Marini, VR46, Muni Ducati team, and a big hats off to them as well, because their profile and their footprint is just elevating in the MotoGP class. Top of the timesheets, that's where he ended the Valencia test last year, and he leaves the Sepang circuit as not only the fastest rider from this test, but one of only 3 riders to get into that 157 bracket around the Sepang circuit. Last year, of course, Jorge Martin was the first rider that went into the 157 bracket. This time around, fellow Ducati riders, Luca Marini, who's on top of the pile, joins him along with the second place man in the combined 3 days of testing, which is the number 1 plate. Great to see that number 1 plate back in MotoGP. Great decision, Pecco Bagnaia. I think it looks fantastic. Growing up as a kid watching bike racing, the reference was always that number 1 plate. Whoever had that was the guy you watched. And I think it's great to see the number 1 plate back in there. And he finished the testing in second place and the third rider, one of only 3 riders to break into that 157 bracket. So the Ducati's looking on form again. Luca Marini, a couple of the Facebook posts that we put out, a couple of people saying, could he potentially be a title contender? He showed nothing but maturity and consistency so far in his MotoGP career. Why not? He's on a Ducati. He's in a fantastic team. The VR46 Muni team, won Rookie of the Year last year with Marco Bezzecchi. Had some great results with both Bezzecchi and Marini. Marini just was consistently knocking on the door of that top 5, consistently in the top 10, setting fastest lap times, ending tests as the fastest rider. So there's no reason not to believe that he can go for the title. I do just think there's that little edge missing compared to the likes of Bagnaia, Bastianini, Marc Marquez. We kind of still talk about him as a title contender, but we just don't know with where he is with the Honda package. We'll get into that later. But Marini, fantastic job. Love what he's doing. Proud. Put my hands up. I was wrong. You've proved me, and I'm sure a lot of people wrong. keep up the good work, and let's see. The possibilities are endless when it comes to Marini and that VR46 team. So well done there. Pecco Bagnaia, I still think number one plate, the dominance that he showed in the second half of last year, and I watched the recent documentary that came out on the MotoGP website where there can only be one, and Pecco admitted, first half of the season last year I wasn't there, I was trying too hard, I was riding very immature. Once he put that together, he was unstoppable. Him and that Ducati became unstoppable. And I think he's going to bring that in this year. I think he's going to be, he is the title favorite because he's got the number one plate. And I think Pecco is going to win a lot of races. I don't know if there'll be as many mistakes as last year. I don't think he can afford to with the rivals that he's got coming this year. I think the whole level is going to be stepped up once again, as we saw last year. Last year was a fantastic year. I think 2023 is just going to go to the next level. So yeah, Marini on top, Bagnaia in second, Maverick Viñales, the testing world champion, there in third place. And it's hard to get excited with Viñales in testing because how many times have we spoken about, certainly at Sepang, Maverick Viñales when he was on the Yamaha, dominated Sepang, dominated testing, and then come to race weekends, just too inconsistent. So Maverick Viñales up there. He says he's going to be fast this year. He says he's going to be on it, but this Maverick Viñales can change from week in to week out. So I think it's a fantastic job by Aprilia. I think Viñales' adaptation to the Aprilia is just evolving and getting better and better. It's how he handles this. If he could bring that same Viñales, that same mentality that Viñales brings into testing, if he can just somehow bring it into more of the races. There's race weekends where Viñales is untouchable and is brilliant and the testing Viñales comes out, but we need to see that more often. If we're really going to be talking about him as a title contender, we've known him and wanted him to be for so many years. Can 2023 be the season? Can Aprilia be the backbone that he needed? Can Aprilia be that arm around him that a rider like Maverick Viñales needs? He needs to be cuddled. A cuddled, happy Maverick Viñales. Again, just endless possibilities there. So well done to him finishing inside the top three. Enea Bastianini in fourth place. Of course, the new addition to the factory Ducati team alongside Pecco Bagnaia in the place of Jack Miller. I have him down as my favorite for the World Championship. I think he's got the motivation to go out and beat Pecco Bagnaia, to be not only the number one rider in that team, the Italian team, but be the number one in MotoGP, the number one Italian. I think he's got that push like a bastard attitude that could pull it off. I think Ducati will have the management to give him the tools that he needs, although we've seen Ducati management get it wrong with riders in previous years. But I think all the signs point in the direction of Enea Bastianini having a fantastic season in Ducati colours. Again, I'll say it again. Ducati's biggest task this year is managing the expectations of Pecco, Enea and Jorge Martin, and managing that testosterone, managing those personalities, because if they don't, that could very quickly turn into an internal crumble, basically. But they have all the ingredients, Ducati, to go out this year and dominate once again, and we could be seeing Ducati top 5, top 6 potentially in the World Championship. Certainly favourites for the number one plate, whether that goes to Pecco, Enea. In my view, I think those are the two real favourites for me. But it could go, Jorge Martin, we'll touch upon him just now. He was straight after Enea Bastianini in 5th place. But finishing off with Bastianini, I just think that push like a bastard, that dig deep, die hard, I think that's gonna gel well with that factory bike. He wasn't too pleased. Saw him come in at his final session at the end of day 3 and shaking his head. He said he just is not too happy with the new power delivery on the new 2023 bike. It's a bit too up and down. They haven't quite figured that out yet. He had to, he wasn't as comfortable as he is on the 22 bike, certainly. So, but I think that's Enea, who's just fully focused and fully determined to be the top man in 2023. So I think, for me, he is my title favorite. If I had to put money on it, I would go for Nea Bastianini. Behind him, Jorge Martin. Now, what impressed me so much with Martin is on day one, goes straight out and almost immediately gets into the 58 bracket. You know, there's riders that didn't get into the 58 bracket. There's riders that took 3 days to get into the 58 bracket. This guy is just the king of that. Climbing on that motorbike, probably not set up perfectly at all, but he's just able to go fast. He's just able to climb on that motorbike, go fast and set a fast lap time. And that is his biggest strength, Jorge Martin. What he's got to add to that profile now is the maturity side, making the correct decisions in certain situations. So again, with many riders that I'm probably going to talk about a bit later on, with Jorge Martin, if Ducati can manage him well, if his personal management can manage him a little bit better when it comes to racecraft and race weekends, there's no reason why Jorge Martin can't be challenging for the world title. I just worry that decision that he didn't get the factory right might just cloud his judgment in certain situations. I think he wants payback to Ducati, whether that's going to come out in certain situations, on the brakes, potentially passing an Bastianini or Pecco Bagnaia, and I'll show you guys. I just think there might be this element of revenge in many ways for Jorge Martin that I hope doesn't come in the way of him potentially challenging for this world title, because he's got all the ingredients to be a top title contender in that Pramac Ducati team. And that'll be fantastic to see a satellite team, although he's a full factory contracted rider on a full factory spec bike. But it would be interesting to see a satellite team take the world title, the first since Valentino Rossi did it all those years back on the 500cc Honda machine. Behind him, 6th place, Aleix Spargo on the Aprilia. Big year for Aleix Spargo. I think he's going to be consistent. I think he's going to have some great results again this year. I don't think we're going to see the same charges that we did from Aleix as we did last year. I think he used a lot of energy up in that. I think it showed towards the end of the year that he just couldn't maintain that mental, I'm not saying physical, he's one of the fittest men on the planet. But I think the hype of it all got to him and those energy levels just drained. The same can be said for Aprilia. So I think he's going to be consistently fast. I think he's going to have some great rides. I think he's going to help evolve that whole Aprilia package. I think he's going to be the perfect captain, as they call him, to just lead that project into bigger and better things. I just don't think he's going to be the titled man. I could see him quite easily top 5 again, potentially maybe challenging for top 3 again. But I think he's just going to be missing that little extra that's needed right at the end. And, it's because he's going up against, 23 to 27-year-old, no holds barred riders, whereas he's older statesman now, the family, the 2 beautiful kids, the beautiful wife. So, yeah, how much is he going to commit compared to them in certain situations? And take nothing away from Aleix Spargo. It was a fabulous 2022, and I wish him nothing but the best in 2023. I became a huge fan of Aleix Spargo in 2022, and I really do hope he can continue that. Behind him, Fabio Di Giannantonio. Great to see him up there on the Ducati. We all know the mental problems, the kind of little mental breakdown that he had in 2022. Looks happier, looks refreshed. I was saying one big thing he had to go out in the break and do was just get some mental coaching and just go sit and talk to a sports psychologist and get himself sorted. And it looks like he's done that. Look, early days, first test, you can take some from this. The whole season's going to paint a completely different picture as we've seen in the past, but this is kind of a good base that we can take. And there's no reason why Di Giannantonio shouldn't be challenging inside the top 10 more often than not. He's in a great team. Gresini Ducati proved last year with Nea Bastianini that they can contend for race wins, podiums and championships. So why not? So Di Giannantonio, with the problems that he came out with last year, I hope he does have a great season. Also, nothing but praise for the young man, the way he treated the media last year, the way he handled me personally every time I walked up to him, asking him to sign 16 million things. Always very accommodating, very nice guy. And great to see him up in the top 10 there in 7th place. Marco Bezzecchi in 8th place there. He was also one of the early runners in day 1 and day 2. Again, just the profile and the progress that is Marco Bezzecchi is just improving every single year. Rookie of the year last year, coming from Moto2, where I thought he was a little bit inconsistent. I didn't think, again, like Marini, he would kind of put these kind of performances together as he had in MotoGP. testament again. Well done, Bezzecchi. Well done, VR46 Muni Ducati. You guys really have created a great foundation there, and it's just showing in the rider, in the results of your riders, and the way they just look very happy, and they look like an inseparable unit, that team. They really do. So fantastic stuff there. Bezzecchi in 8th. Alex Marquez in 9th on the Gresini Ducati now. Big talk, big hype around Alex Marquez. I'm one of those that put my hand up and said, I think we're going to see the real Alex Marquez shine here. I think he has to. He's on a Ducati. He's had years in MotoGP now with no success, a couple of podiums, no race wins, and it's just fizzled away. He just hasn't proved his worth in MotoGP for me. On a Gresini Ducati now, looking comfortable, out in many ways of the big shadow cast by his brother at Honda. So I think this is the year for Alex Marquez to shine, and he's got all the support, he's got all the resources from Ducati and Gresini Ducati and Gresini team, I should say, and he proved it up inside the top 10, fastest time that he's ever posted at Sepang, over a second faster than he managed on the LCR last year already, second time on the motorbike. So, well done, Alex Marquez. Let's see if he can just carry that momentum on and be a contender this year. Marc Marquez, the first Japanese motorcycle in 10th place. It's incredible. Marc, a big positive was that Marc came out and said physically he's feeling great, but Honda still are not giving him the package to go win this title. Simon Crafar said it perfect. Marc is ready to go compete for this title this year. Honda aren't, and it was clear with this. Sure, Honda look lost. Honda really do look lost. They came with 4 packages for Marc Marquez and 16 million other packages, and it got to the point where they literally took their bike, stripped it of all the aero, the wings and everything, went out, did laps on that, and then slowly, piece by piece, put things on to try and identify where their problem is. They've got Ken Kawachi, who was the mastermind behind the Suzuki MotoGP project for so many years. They've appointed him, which I think is probably one of the best signings of the year. I'm just worried that Honda, are just giving themselves too much to do with all these options. Just literally, instead of just, I know this process was to try and narrow it down to get to the Portimao test with less things to try and more of a direction to go into. And I think Marc Marquez sounds like they did find that, he kicked a couple of parts and bikes out of that garage very, very quickly, but they have got a big job to do. A couple of people posting on our Facebook page, and it's so true, is that the problem with the likes of Yamaha, KTM, and we'll get to them, and Honda, is that they have to work so hard to try and be a second from Ducati, and that's the reality of it. Is they're a second behind these Ducati riders that are still complaining and not happy, but they're just hopping on the bikes and going fast. So yeah, big work for Marc Marquez to do. I took a lot of confidence from seeing that he feels physically great after the 3 days. The third day, he said he did feel a little bit of weakness in the arm, but that's expected after 3 days of hard riding. But Marc Marquez himself is ready to go physically, mentally attack this world title. Honda just need to now bring him that package. And I think Ken Kawachi is a great man to have in that corner. They've just got to, stop looking. They copied Aprilia's fairing. They did this. They went back to a 2018 bike with a 2020 this and a 20. They need to narrow that down. They need to bring that all in and try and find a direction as soon as possible, because this championship's going to wait for no man. You have 2-3 bad rounds, that's potentially you over. Last year, Pecco pulled off a miracle with what he did. I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than that. I don't think there's going to be as many mistakes, and teams and riders cannot afford to make those mistakes, especially with sprint races now in the mix. 42 races for these riders and teams to contend this year. It's a lot of points up for grabs and a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, and Honda have got to limit those. Raul Fernandez, one of the biggest surprises in this test. He was in 11th place on the Aprilia. Great for him, bad for KTM, because in many ways it highlights where the KTM package was for Raul Fernandez, who was always at the bottom of the timesheets wherever he went on that KTM. Yes, mentally he wasn't there, and we can go, that's a whole nother topic of discussion, that relationship. But for him to climb on the Aprilia for the second time and go into 11th place, yes, a lot of these riders put soft tyres on and went for a sprint race kind of simulation in a hot lap. This is not a true reflection on their overall pace. But you know what? Hats off to Raul Fernandez in 11th place. I didn't see that happening, but he's pulled it off. Can he pull it off more often than not? Can he string a season together? Can he be that rider that we saw in Moto2 that Yamaha wanted than Aprilia have gone out on a limb in many ways, and Razlan in the RNF team to go out and get. Let's wait and see. But you know what? Well done, Raul Fernandez. Joan Mir in 12th. His adaptation to the Repsol Honda continues. And again, it's more a case of him trying to, and this is the hard part for him. While Honda are coming with all these things, he's trying to learn the Honda. And it's hard to learn it when you've just got parts being thrown at you and fairings and wings and no wings. And so it looks like Marc Marquez and Taka Nakagami very much are the test riders. And Mir and Rins are kind of, go find your feet on the bike and stuff. But again, the sooner Honda can find a direction, the better for all the Honda riders. But not bad from Joan Mir there in 12th. Not far off Marc Marquez, a couple of tenths. Second time out on the Honda. So not all terrible there, but again, a couple of tenths to his teammate. But a second or so off the leading Ducati riders. That's the biggest concern for all the riders that I'm going to mention going down now. Paulo Espargaro, the top of the KTMs on the gas, very much a test rider role for Paulo Espargaro this year in racing. Ducati are doing it with Johan Zarco, Honda are doing it with Taka Nakagami, and Paulo Espargaro has come back very much in a test role. And speaking to Guidotti in the launch of the KTM team, he said that Paulo Espargaro wanted this role because at Honda he just wasn't getting any new parts, and he very much wants to be at the heart and soul of development. He did it for years with KTM. He wants to be back there, and had a small crash and wasn't looking fantastic up until the last day. We managed to post that 158.7 lap time, which put him in 13th, but good. We haven't seen this kind of form from Paul. Looked happy, looked smiling. Him and the team are gelling really well. I love the look of the gas bike, especially in that carbon fiber Kevlar kind of look. Can't wait to see that bright red bike on the grid. I think it's going to be fantastic. So Paulo Espargaro back there doing a lot of development of different aero packages from Red Bull, Formula One team, to to new engine parts, and again, might be that same kind of Honda syndrome where they're just trying too much. Got to find a more simplified direction and try and stick to that and focus on that rather than all of this. But that is the reality of where KTM and gas are at the moment. So Paulo Espargaro in 13th, Brad Binder, our very own Brad Binder, in 14th there again, just going up, down, left, right, literally trying every single option he possibly can. And I know a lot of South African fans stressed out on Facebook, and Brad's, he must leave KTM, he's not going to... I can understand concern, but knowing Brad, he wants to try all the elements. He wants to put everything together. We call him the Sunday man because he literally takes in as much information as he possibly can before he fully puts it together. Listen, there are problems. KTM are not where they need to be. They shouldn't have to. They should be a lot quicker out the bat, than they are currently. They cannot be ending tests still over a second shy of the fastest time. So they need to rectify that. The biggest problem here for the Hondas, the Yamahas, and the KTMs is the sprint races. With the sprint races added now, and their lack of kind of hot lap pace compared to Ducatis and Aprilias, that's going to play huge this year. It's going to be a huge thing this year, not only for qualifying, but for the sprint races. So they've got to find a solution for that. And listen, they are trying. You got to give them credit for trying. But just like Honda, they've got to narrow it down and find a path and try and stick to that and fine-tune things rather than just, creating this headache of having too many options. Miguel Oliveira in 15th. I was expecting a little bit more from him. He said he was expecting more from himself. Certainly to be bettered by Raul Fernandez is not how he wanted to start his time with Aprilia, and being bettered by, two KTM machines, Paulo Espargaro, Gas, and Brad. But still a lot to come from Miguel Oliveira. I think he's also very meticulous. I think he's a workhorse. He likes things to be his way. Until it's like that, he doesn't really show his full potential. So a little bit more adaptation there from him. I think Portimao will be a different story. I think we'll see a much bigger progression there from Miguel Oliveira. Check out the interview that I did just before the Sepang test on our YouTube channel here, in case you haven't watched that. Some great info there from him. Johan Zarco in 16th, the worst pretty much of the Ducatis. Again, test rider role there for him, testing new parts in race conditions, which I think is a brilliant initiative by all these teams, because these are seriously fast riders. That's the best way to test your product and your kind of developments, is in fast race conditions. So with Zarco, that's pretty much his role this year, although I still do think he's got he's got to prove his worth in MotoGP. Yeah, it's great to have him as a test role, and that one of the older riders now, that's a proper seat that he's on. Hasn't picked up that win yet, so yeah, a lot of focus on Zarco this year to he needs to prove himself a bit more, basically in MotoGP. Fabio Quartararo in 17th, Yamaha, a disaster. Those were the exact words Fabio Quartararo used, a disaster. Said kind of race pace on old tyres seems to be very good. Happy with the extra speed that they found out of the Yamaha, now inside kind of consistently the top 6, top 5 in the top speed department, so that's great. But they've lost something on new tyres. He said on new tyres, it's just a disaster. We don't know what we're doing. We have no pace. And again, heading into a season where there's 42 races, the qualifying sprint races, that is going to be a big problem for Quartararo and Yamaha. Quartararo doesn't finish 17th in tests. I know how much can you take from tests. You can take a lot from that, because they should not be down in 17th place. That is abysmal. And Quartararo, again, watching that, there can only be one documentary. He starts the documentary, you can see they filmed him at the start of the year looking all happy and fresh. By the end of it, he looked drained, he looked exhausted, and his shoulders dropped, and he lost energy in himself and in the project, because he just had to give so much to it. And I fear that might happen again this year with Fabio. Yamaha have got to step it up. They've got to step it up. They really do have to find a solution there for Fabio if they want to contend. Jack Miller in 18th, his adaptation to the KTM just carries on. He did admit he hit a brick wall on Sunday. He said they're just struggling to find a spot in the geometry that makes him happy. He just can't finish off corners. He can't bring the bike back to the point where he wants to be. Then he can't get the drive out of the corners. The bike's very fast. From third gear onwards, it's just as good, if not better, than all the other bikes. But he said low down, getting out of the corner, they just can't finish corners off. They can't get that power to the ground and get out of corners. So pretty much the same kind of complaints that Brad Binder's been going on about for a couple of years now. So big work there to do for KTM. Again, Miller and his team did a lot of work going through different aero packages and this and that and this and that and this and that. Had a small tumble coming out of turn 1. Luckily nothing too serious, but Jack was positive, but at the same time was like, I've got a big job on my hands here. And let's not forget, it's not just him adapting, it's his whole team, his crew chief, all those Ducati minds that have come into the KTM setup have to adapt themselves. So it's going to be a process. I think we're going to have to be a little bit patient there. It was never going to be easy coming from the fine-tuned Ducati that just works kind of in every situation just about, to this ever-evolving stubborn KTM in many ways. So yeah, it's going to be a tough, hard, don't give up, dig deep kind of season, I think, for Jack Miller in many ways. He'll hope to get to Portimao and hope that they found more of a direction that they can just improve there, as will all the KTM riders. Alex Rins in 19th, LCR Honda man. Again, I'm sure he would want to be higher up. Again, just adapting to the Honda and everything that's been thrown at him. They've got to just find a clearer path there for Honda. They're borrowing fairing ideas from Aprilia. They're borrowing this. They're using outsourced swing arms. They've changed to Akrapovic. There's just so much going on with Honda. They just need to funnel it all in and find a direction for their riders to improve. Franco Morbidelli in 20th, the rider with probably the biggest target on his back, the talk of Jorge Martin taking his place in that factory Yamaha team for next year. Whether Martin would want to do that if Yamaha don't improve this current situation. But Morbidelli, it's got to do better than that. He's just got to. Again, another man who has proved his worth in MotoGP, but just lost it in the last couple of years. And yeah, he's got to do better than that. Taka Nakagami in 21st, very much a test rider role there within Honda, and again, just everything coming at him. The only rookie, Augusto Fernandez in 22nd. Good time, 159.6, so good time to get into the 59s was good for him. I think he would have expected more. He had the extra couple of days as well, the shakedown test, had a couple of crashes there, but yeah, I think Augusto will develop into a good MotoGP rider. He just needs the KTM package to come with him. I just hope he gets given the time, not like, last year's situation where you're not performing, get lost. I think there's potential there with Augusto Fernandez. Carl Crutchlow in 23rd, Bradl in 24th, and Nagasuga in 25th place there, rounding out. Those are the test riders at the bottom. So that's it. Exciting to have MotoGP back on track. Loved it. As I said, you can take some from this testing. It's a good base, but you can't really take too much because it is testing after all. But I mean, the signs are there that Ducati are on the right track. they have been for a while now. Aprilia are certainly on the right track. Honda, Yamaha, KTM, Gas, very much playing catch up. They've got a lot of work to do now before that next test at Portimao, before the season starts on the 24th of March. Their riders will be scratching their heads, but it's not the end of the world. Let's not panic too much just yet. I understand concerns. It's a long season ahead, 42 races, a lot of variables coming in, a lot of work for the teams to do. So let's give them the time and the chance to prove their worth. But for now, the writing's on the wall. It's going to be Ducati domination, it looks like, again. Either way, it's going to be a very exciting 2023 season. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking MotoGP. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, because we've got some great content coming out throughout the year, hoping to get to as many MotoGP races as I possibly can. Interviews like I did with Miguel Oliveira, just as much MotoGP content as we possibly can. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. See you next time.